Thursday, February 5th edition of the Carolina Weather Video. Meteorologist Matthew East here with you. Let's talk about what's ahead in our weather. First of all, we're going to begin with a look at the numbers from yesterday, and I'm going to discuss how today is going to be a much colder day. Temperatures made it into the 50s for highs in many locations around the region yesterday. 53 the high in Charlotte, 54 in Greensboro and Raleigh, up to 55 in Columbia, mid-50s in Fayetteville, Jacksonville, and Wilmington over toward the Outer Banks as well. Currently, temperatures are not that bad, but in many foothill and Piedmont spots, this is really about as warm as we will be throughout the day, as much colder air begins to plunge on into the region behind a departing storm system and its associated cold front. Now, this system has behaved about as expected, the rain remaining confined to the Gulf Coast and then up through the coastal plains of North and South Carolina. A little bit of snow west of the mountains. That'll be a little bit of mountain snow in some spots this morning, but in between here in the Piedmont, very little for most spots in terms of any precipitation this morning. So there's a peek at the radar imagery on Storm Tracker this morning. A lot of what you see there in the eastern parts of the Charlotte Metro up toward Stanley and Montgomery counties, up toward portions of the Raleigh-Durham area. A lot of that is some low clouds that the radar is picking up and is not rain that's making it to the ground. If it is making it to the ground, it's really not much more than sprinkles. The measurable type of rain is over toward the coastal plain, roughly I-95 and points east and south. Heavy rain at times over the past few hours in the Outer Banks, and then you get down into parts of Georgia, northern Florida, some areas of rain. And again, I mentioned that snow west of the mountains, not very impressive, but a little bit of snow out there nonetheless. It'll briefly move through the North Carolina mountains this morning. All right, these are current actual air temperatures. Not too bad currently here, but you look off to the northwest and look at these readings over the plains and the Great Lakes, the mid and upper Mississippi Valley region. It's 3 below in Des Moines, Iowa, 12 below. These are actual air temperatures now in Lincoln, Nebraska, 4 in Topeka and Kansas City, 1 in Chicago. That's a pretty cold air mass that's blowing on into the region. That is a cold Arctic high pressure settling into the eastern part of the country. So we'll see sunshine returning with time today. But it's going to be a very blustery day. Check out these winds this afternoon. We'll see north and northwest winds sustain 15 to 25 plus miles per hour, some gusts to 30 plus miles per hour before those winds then relax as we get into this evening and tonight. So that means wind chill values today are going to be pretty chilly, especially across North Carolina. Check out these afternoon wind chills, the 20s in the Triad, 5 or so, single-digit wind chill values up in Boone today as this colder air settles in. And then tonight, you see a GFS model's representation of lows tomorrow morning. It's going to be a cold morning. I think many Piedmont and foothill spots in North Carolina between 16 and 21 degrees for lows. It's going to be a cold night and still a pretty chilly day for Friday. High pressure directly overhead, a good deal of sunshine, and your highs tomorrow in the 40s out there around the region. But boy, the weekend continues to look fantastic. Saturday, that high pressure off to the south, so we get into the southwesterly flow on the northern periphery of that high. And look at these numbers, up into the 50s, even some 60s creeping in the Sandhills and down to the South Carolina. Really a nice Saturday. And then I think even warmer for Sunday. That high pressure down in Florida. And again, we're in really good shape temperature-wise. Look at those numbers. Sunday afternoon under a partly cloudy sky. Really nice stuff. Now, it still looks like the next system rolls in here on Monday, but the trend on a number of the computer models has been toward less actual precipitation with that system. That's the GFS representation. Let me show you some of the high-resolution modeling. Here's the upper level chart off the European model, 500 millibar chart for Monday morning. Compare that to the 0-0 on the GFS. The orientation of the trough is a little bit different between those two models. And here's the result at the surface. Before I get into that, I just want to show you there's the raw GFS 2-meter temperatures around daybreak, or I'm sorry, the minimum temperatures through daybreak tomorrow. You see that chillier air in place. Now, as we get into the weekend, there's the setup. Saturday, high pressure off to the south, and I know it's a little tough to see, but those southwesterly winds helping to give us some really nice stuff. All right, on to the higher resolution modeling. This is Monday off the 0-0 on the GFS. You notice some very light rain in parts of the Carolinas. As you get deeper into the afternoon, the mountains kick over to a brief period of some snow. And just again, very, very light precipitation being indicated on the GFS with this system. Now, the European is pretty similar in regards to just some light rain in many North Carolina and some South Carolina zones. Monday does not look like a big precipitation event. The Canadian is the model that's held on to some heavier precipitation, some heavier rain. That's the rain Monday morning through the early afternoon on the Canadian model. So it's still holding on to the idea of some better rain totals, but the trend has been toward less rain over the last couple of model cycles. Now, in the longer range, let's go out to 192 hours. This is the European model. This is valid next Thursday evening, about a week from now. And notice the basic features here. You have another cutoff low. Those have been prevalent this year back in the northern Mexico area. Big trough, pretty cold trough in the eastern parts of the country, ridge over the Rocky Mountain region on top of that cutoff low. That's, again, the European. Let me go back. All right, there's the European, and there is the GFS. Again, some subtle differences there, but the basic forecast concept is similar. And so here's the look at the surface on the European about that time frame. This is Friday morning. That's a cold and dry setup. This has kind of been the deal as we've gone through the course of a lot of this winter. Let me go back to the European chart here. You've had, at times, cold air here across the eastern part of the country, but it just has not been a pattern that's really allowed these systems to amplify as they try to eject. A lot of times they've gotten stuck out here, and when they do come out, a lot of times they're getting squashed off to the south, like the current system, or you kind of lose the ridging out west. The system really can't dig, and you end up with a big trend north on some of the models with the systems as they actually approach our part of the country. Now, one more chart to show you. So let me see if I can dig that up. All right, here we go. Yeah, this is the European Ensemble model, the Ensemble mean, rather, for 276 hours. This is out at Monday, 10 days from now, basically. And that's not a terrible look. The GFS ensemble has been more persistent with putting the ridge placement about right there. And that's more of a cold, dry, suppressed look. But if this look is correct on the European and you get a ridge right along the west coast and some cold air in the eastern part of the country and systems trying to shoot out, that might be a more favorable setup in that time period, the day, say, 7 to 11 time period, if you're trying to generate a winter weather event somewhere in the southeast. But again, that's a lot of conjecture, just kind of gazing a bit into the crystal ball that far out. All right, that is it for today's edition of the video. Everybody have a wonderful day, stay warm, and God bless.